Hi, I'm Emmanuel Achiri, and this is The World Today. The World Today is a television debate and talk show program brought to you by the Department of Political Science and International Relations of the Eastern Mediterranean University and hosted by DAO TV. It is a program which engages students, scholars, and competent actors on topical and current issues in international affairs through expert analysis and enlightening insights. We also seek to stimulate interest in prospective students to undergraduate and postgraduate studies at the Department of Political Science and International Relations in particular, and EMU in general. For our premiere edition, we are honored to have with us today Dr. Rok Supancic. Dr. Rok Supancic is Assistant Professor at the Defense Research Center, University of Ljubljana. He is also a postdoc at the University of Graz and is currently working on a project funded by the Marie Curie Institute on the normative role of the European Union in North Kosovo. Welcome to the World Today, Dr. Rok.
Thank you very much.
So, how has your day been? I understand you had a seminar at the Department of Political Science and International Relations. So please tell us, what was it about? What got you interested in this project and how do you intend to carry it out?
So the first idea why I got interested in this project is that I come from the country which used to belong to Yugoslavia, and so does the Kosovo belong to the territory of ex-Yugoslavia. And this was my main motivation. My PhD was connected to the Kosovo peace-building issues, and this was maybe idea that we try to do something more, something that goes beyond the current wisdom and current knowledge of Albanian-Serbian relations. And in this regard, I wanted to focus on intra-Serbian relations and conflicts in Kosovo. And this was actually the main motivation of my research.
Oh, quite interesting. During the seminar there were lots of questions, and unfortunately we did not have enough time to exhaust the questions, so we have some questions here from some students from the department, if you don't mind.
Sure.
And the first question basically is, what is the Brussels dialogue, and why is it referred to as one of the cornerstones of EU peace building?
So the Brussels Agreement, or dialogue, it begins as the dialogue and it led to the Brussels Agreement, is a series of negotiations and then also documents that have been signed by the political representatives of Serbia and Kosovo. And all of these processes are aimed at improving relations between Serbia and Kosovo. They aim to provide some kind of platform on which the future of not only Kosovo and Serbia would be built on, but also some kind of platform for the integration and stabilization of the whole Western Balkan region.
Interesting. So basically, during the seminar, and based on the little I know about this issue, two questions often arise regarding the Brussels dialogue. The first is the dialogue helping Kosovo and Serbia in the normalization of relations? And the second is the process helping the lives of citizens in both countries, especially those in Kosovo?
If we look at the Brussels dialogue from the perspective of 2018, so this is 5 years after the dialogue or agreement has been signed, it can be seen in a way as a success, because bringing the conflicting parties to the table, to the negotiations, and having them being prepared, at least theoretically, to solve the issue is definitely a step forward. But another thing is, what does this mean for the citizens of Kosovo, both Albanians, Serbs, and other members of other ethnic communities? And when we come to these questions, things are not that optimistic anymore, because from Brussels maybe the conflict seems normal and maybe it got stabilized for the Brussels perspective, but on the ground some people are still facing very big problems which also arise from the legacy that the European Union is sometimes turning a blind eye to the development of insecure relations that followed the Brussels Agreement. Sometimes it also turned a blind eye to the corruption, not only its own lines, but also in terms of some members of these ethnic communities, which are involved in some cases, criminal activities as well. And even though the European Union officials very often know that certain people are involved in some problematic activities, they do not react. And the main explanation is why they do not react is that they say that they do not have a mandate to do something. So you have this situation when conflict is frozen in time, no one is really satisfied, but out of it there are a lot of people who benefit from this frozen conflict. Of course not people on a, let's say, low level or the average people, but some, let's say, political elites on both sides, Kosovar and and Serbian, benefit very well.
I'm not sure I got the quote right, but I was watching this thing. It's a South Korean movie. It was basically on the relations between the South and North. And I think one of the quotes that actually struck me there, I'm just trying to paraphrase, is that in any conflict, the people who actually suffer the most are the people, and the people who benefit sometimes are the elite. Of course, not in all the cases, but I think somehow there is a relation between what you're saying, that the elite on both sides somehow benefit from the fact that this conflict is frozen in time, while locally, I mean, people are still suffering, or there are many weaknesses, if we can call it that way. And on that same line, I mean, basically, you've outlined some of the weaknesses, or some of the flaws of the Brussels dialogue. So where does your project come in? Does it come in to strengthen the framework, or you're proposing something different?
Actually, the main idea of this project and my research as such is that I would like to provide some additional information on the conflict and on the consequences of the conflict and of this freeze in time that happened, and this is actually still happening. So yeah, I would like to give some kind of recommendations, not only to the EU but also to the local politicians, to pay more attention to the everyday life of citizens. Not only that they concentrate on this very strategic and on very top level. And one of the main flaws of the Brussels dialogue is that the people of the northern Kosovo, so those people who have to live with the Brussels dialogue and the consequences, are really rarely consulted and asked what do they want in this dialogue. A lot of people in the north of Kosovo, now I'm speaking about the Serbs mostly, would say that actually it's the government in Kosovo, so the Kosovo government and the government of Serbia, who are deciding for themselves, for the normal common people. And I think this is definitely not a good approach of the EU. I'm very much for the inclusion also of these local representatives in the negotiations and such. The other thing is, of course, who are these locals who should be consulted and asked.
So, I mean, you have an idea about this? I mean, the locals, or is still research which is ongoing?
Actually, my research is still ongoing, and the more research I do, the less ideas I have, which is very much frustrating. I have to admit that. But on a serious note, I think it's very important that the EU as an organization would not insist and put, let's say, that much of effort to keep certain people on both sides in power. I think that European Union has been committing some mistakes in this regard, that some people who kind of assure stability in Kosovo, and here I mean politicians on both sides, always receive some kind of support from the EU, but yeah, for the common people, things do not change. It's not very optimistic.
But are there any other organizations, I mean, apart from the European Union, are there any other organizations, maybe local NGOs who are actually working or work in collaboration with the EU, or maybe as independent organizations towards maybe peace-building measures or something?
You know, where you have money, you also have NGOs which develop, and we should not turn a blind eye to that. This is the fact. Here, in the case of Kosovo, both the north of Kosovo or the central part of Kosovo, you have some NGOs who are involved in some really problematic behavior, I would say. But of course, we should not put all organizations in the same basket, right? There are sure some organizations which do very good things, and I think these organizations should be further boosted and supported, whereas the organizations which are of a dubious character should be at least put under serious checks and balances.
Oh. So what's the connection? What's the link? Because in some circles we hear that there is some sort of similarities between the conflict in Kosovo and that in Cyprus. Is there such a similarity, and if there is, what is the similarity, or the similarities between Kosovo and Cyprus?
So, the first similarity is that the capital, sorry, not the capital, one of the biggest cities in Kosovo, it's called Mitrovica, is pretty much similar to the city of Nicosia in terms of this division. So you don't have a buffer zone which would run through the city, but you do have a river which actually divides the city. You don't have these United Nations troops standing on either side of the bridge and check IDs and passports and so on. But people do not feel very comfortable in changing sides. Well, the situation has changed a lot in the last couple of years on a positive from this perspective. So there is more traffic to either side of the bridge. Yeah, this is the way forward. So this is maybe one similarity. The second similarity is, in my opinion, that a lot of people, also NGOs, benefit from the conflict. I'm not saying that this is something which should be criticized very much. It's normal that people take jobs. They take jobs that are resolving the conflict because they directly benefit from the conflict.
Okay, interesting. I mean, let's say in the case of Kosovo, for example, is it the elite who are interested in maintaining the stalemate, or even within the local communities, I mean within both ethnic communities, I mean the everyday citizen, is there also a lack of will to want to look for an agreement, or is it just among the political elite?
Mm-hmm. Actually, political elites, in my opinion, are definitely not interested in real solution, and this is similar to the case of Bosnia and Herzegovina, which is not far away from Kosovo. But then when you come to the let's say common people, there are definitely some intellectuals, young people on both sides, who are genuinely interested to resolve the situation. But you have a lot of, let's say, communities in either side of this border, or in both societies, who have been maybe suffering too much in the conflict, and they are not ready to, to approach the other ethnic community, and I'm not that much optimistic for that part. And maybe just another note with regard to the students, I mean to the young people. Also the young people, sometimes we say, okay, young people are very positive, they will, they don't have prejudices and so on. In some cases this is not the case. Sometimes the youngsters are even more divided than people who have experience of living in one country which once was together, and here I mean Yugoslavia.
Wow, I mean, if there is one thing I noticed, let's say, about the situation in Cyprus, I think from one of the instructors also a while back, was the issue of what was studied in school. I mean, for example, I think there was a time when the textbooks, because sometimes this textbook actually build this mentality, they ingrain in these young people how to think about this conflict and how to approach it. So is it the same case in Kosovo, where, let's say, in central Kosovo the textbooks blame the other side, and let's say now the textbooks also blame the other side? So can this be a reason? Is it the first question basically is that the case there? Do we have like different textbooks, and how are these textbooks constructed? Basically the curriculum of the schools, how are they constructed? Do you think it plays a role?
Absolutely. This is one of the crucial questions. Textbooks are different. So the textbooks in the north of Kosovo or in Serbian enclaves are written in Serbian language by Serbian scholars and professors and so on. And they mostly study about so if you go back to the Middle Ages, they study about Great Serbia, so the Kingdom of Serbia, which was actually established in the area of Kosovo.